The single most common question I get when I stream is why do you use Spellslinger? And there's basically 5 main reasons why I do it. The first is the automation of combo skills. So things like Desecrate Volatile Dead, Eye of Winter with Hydrosphere, Frostbolt with Ice Nova. I don't personally enjoy clicking twice. When I look at people playing Archmage Cremation or people using Bladefall Blade Blast, they look really clunky to me, and I generally want to avoid clunkiness when I'm playing PoE. Spellslinger is a really elegant solution to making a combo build into a one-button build. Secondly, Spellslinger lets you attack with utilities. So this basically either means usually using Frenzy or Power Siphon. There's some areas where you might use Kinetic Blast as well. But basically, Frenzy charges are actually pretty hard to generate, especially early in the game when you don't have good gear. And using Spellslinger lets you use Frenzy, which generates Frenzy charges really easily. In addition, this also lets you use a Curse on Hit setup with your attack skill, so that's some added utility. The third main reason is other utility. So things like using Onslaught with your Hydrosphere, applying Exposure, using Flame Wall. Some things are really hard to trigger like Sniper's Mark or Assassin's Mark. Being able to automate these forms of utility through Spellslinger can make a build feel much smoother, especially if it's something that can give you Onslaught the whole time or give you Power Charge generation through Power Charge on Crit. Fourthly, I use Spellslinger when a skill has really bad base cast speed. So something like Eye of Winter has a base cast speed of 0.8 seconds, which is really bad. And using Spellslinger lets me completely ignore this base cast speed. The last main reason is because of battlemage. Battlemage is basically the damage portion of the Spellslinger support, which converts added damage from your wand into added spell damage. So this isn't actually really that great later on, but early on it makes gearing much easier. Basically, you can throw a Deafening Essence of Wrath or Hatred or Anger on any wand, and pretty much 80% of mods that you'll hit will be beneficial for your build if you're playing a generic spellcaster. It makes gearing way easier. Now there are a bunch of scenarios in which you don't want to use Spellslinger. For one, many builds don't benefit from this battlemage thing, so you might just end up losing a link basically when you run Spellslinger. So your Chaos dot builds, your Fizz dot builds, those don't really benefit from the battlemage portion of Spellslinger. And even your on-hit builds, later on they won't benefit from it because you can get better gear with added damage to spells or crit multi or cast speed or whatever it may be. Secondly, Spellslinger reserves mana. This is an obvious one. It's still possible to use auras on some Spellslinger setups, but in general you won't really be running many auras. And especially with the power level of certain auras like Hatred especially, you end up losing a lot of offensive power. Defensively, there's a very notable reason to not use Spellslinger, and that's Flesh and Stone. Blind is probably one of the most powerful defensive mechanics still in the game right now, and not being able to run Flesh and Stone as an easy source of blind is super damaging, especially for hardcore builds. Thirdly, there are ways to get cast speed. If your skill has really high base cast speed like Freezing Pulse, or you're an Aura stacker, or you're a Frenzy stacker, you'll have really high base cast speed. So in that sense, you won't necessarily want to use Spellslinger. Now if you're still spellslinging things like Stormbrand, you will benefit from that cast speed, but those exceptions are very rare. And lastly, Spellslinger does have a fairly limited trigger rate. A good cast on Critical Strike build will do something like double the damage of Spellslinger. Now of course this takes more damage and has more investment put in, but it really illustrates the ceiling for what Spellslinger can be as far as trigger skills go. So when you're thinking about the next build that you're trying to make, think about these things, right? How important is utility to my build? How much damage am I lacking, or can I sacrifice a bit of damage here? And ultimately it comes down to one core question. Do you value quality of life, or are you a PoE warrior?